tonight. I do work for the New York State Department of Financial Services. Anybody familiar with that agency? We have no insurance brokers. So we regulate the insurance industry in the state, so we license and regulate every insurance company, agency, broker. We review every policy, we approve rates. It's completely 100% there to make sure that the companies are financially solvent and providing, good product. On the banking side, we license and regulate all the New York State chartered banks, credit unions, financial institutions. The big guys like Bank of America and Citibank, those are all federally licensed, but we do coordinate with the federal agencies. I work in the Student Protection Unit. That was started back in 2014 because student loan debt had more than doubled at that point. Does anybody know how much collectively Americans owe in student loan debt today? You want to take a guess? Somebody guess.
1 trillion.
All right, so I heard a trillion. Did I say 1 trillion?
Yeah.
All right, you're very low.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Student loan debt is the second largest consumer debt, right behind mortgages. So more people owe student loan debt than car loans, credit cards, lines of credit, anything else except for the mortgages on their homes. It's about 1.8 trillion. So they set up the Student Protection Unit to do stuff like this, to provide unbiased information to New Yorkers. We also accept complaints and investigate complaints that folks have against their student loan lenders and servicers. And then as of 2019, we started licensing and regulating the student loan servicers. And the servicers are the companies that may or may not own the loans, but they provide like payment processing, customer correspondence, they send out the statements. So they service the loans. And so we're actively looking at we did 8 last year, we've got 8 scheduled for next year. We go to the companies, we review all their policies and procedures, we just pull random phone calls, we do all sorts of stuff just to make sure they're complying with the laws and regulations. So anyway, there's a lot going on. You're all here because you recognize the need for college. Last year, the average college graduate graduated with about $31,000 in student loan debt. And so that equates to a little bit more than $300 a month for 10 years. So that's a good amount of money, right? But I don't have it on the slide. The average college graduate with a 4-year degree over their career, their working career, earns just shy of $1 million more than somebody that doesn't have it. So if you think of this as an investment, pretty good return on investment. And so tonight we're going to break it up into 3 sections. We're going to talk about filling out the FAFSA and the application process. We're going to talk about how colleges formulate financial aid. We're going to talk about all the grants, scholarships, student loans that you're going to see to finance college. And then sprinkled through it, we're going to talk about ways to reduce borrowing so that your kids are all under that average. And it definitely can be done. So I like to, when I speak to just high school students, I like to give them just 2 bits of information because we're really going to get in the weeds tonight, and sometimes it's good to hear this more than once. So I always say if high schoolers can take 2 bits of information from this talk, it will be a success. So the first bit of advice is always finish college. I talk to people that quit college after a couple of years, 3 years, they quit college spring semester, they've got 15 credit hours before they earn their degree and they just leave for a variety of reasons. A lot of people just get discouraged. Sometimes they don't know why they chose this major, they don't even like it anymore. Please encourage them to quit because a college degree will open doors. How many parents are working in the field at which they got their degree? Well, that's a good amount. Good. I'm not, so it's really a game. Guess what my bachelor's degree is in?
Art history.
Art history? No. But I like that.
Business administration.
No?
Philosophy.
No?
French. English.
No? One smart aleck kid a couple weeks ago said phys ed. I was like, are you kidding me? Complete failure. No, think outside the box. Now, this major isn't too odd here, but when I'm speaking in an urban area, it's shocking.
What?
Yes, agriculture. Yeah. Yeah, I got my 2-year degree at Alfred State in agriculture. Then I transferred to a small college in Pennsylvania, Delaware Valley College, with a bachelor's degree in dairy science. Out of college, I worked for Agway. You guys remember Agway? My first location was down in Cuba, straight south. And then I transferred to Holcomb, which is now, they dissolved the town and blended it with Bloomfield, I think. It's just the side of Canandaigua. And then I went to Penn Yan. So you asked, well, how did you get here? And if you'd asked me when I was going to college, I really wanted to be a dairy farmer. And I worked on dairy farms all through my early life. So I went to work for Agway for about 3 years. They were in a death spiral, hemorrhaging money, closing locations. So then I went to work for Cargill. You're all familiar with Cargill, one of the big 3 agribusiness in the world. Worked for them for 5 years, and then I went to work for KeyBank and used my finance stuff at Agway and Cargill at KeyBank. Then I went to work for First Niagara Bank. Remember that, which KeyBank just repurchased or purchased. And that's where I started touching student loans, and then I went to work for New York State Higher Education agency. We're going to talk a lot about in there. I worked in their student loan department. We're going to talk a lot about the scholarships that they administered. And then when this position opened up at this agency, a brand new, whole new department, I applied. Now to apply, you had to have a bachelor's degree. They didn't even ask what it was in. But it was my work experience that got me the job. But the bachelor's degree opened the door. So finish your degree. You never know where life is going to take you. All right, let's get right into it. The FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. How many folks have already started filling that out? Good, 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 good. So the first thing you need to do, if you've not done so already, is create your federal student aid ID. Parents, how many of you, this is your first child going to college? All right, so you've all created a federal student aid ID, right? You should. Now, this is how this works. The FAFSA is your student's application for financial aid. You as a parent are going to be inputting your personal information on there because your student at this point is still a dependent. They're going to need your financial information to formulate financial aid. But it is always, remember, it's your kid's financial aid application, and that means it's going to be your kid's scholarships, grants, and most importantly, student loans. Even though you're putting information on it. So you're both going to need your own unique IDs. You're both going to keep them for life. So, and you have to fill out the FAFSA every fall for the upcoming school year. And so keep them for life. If you have older kids that have already gone to college, you're going to use that same ID. If this is your first and there's younger kids coming, you're going to keep it and you're going to use it for all the subsequent kids. And students, you're going to keep it for life too, because you're going to use that to log into the Department of Education's database to manage your loans, to help manage your loans as you go forward. All right, so the application starting date is October 1st. So we're about 4 weeks into it. I would encourage you, if you've not started, start. Start tomorrow or tonight when you get home. I want everybody to take a deep breath. If you're stressed out thinking about filling this out, don't be. It's really not hard. It's not. Don't overthink it. So I will stay afterwards and talk to folks about some unusual circumstances that they may have. And certain areas of the state are a little bit more neurotic than other areas. I have found that upstate, people are a little more relaxed. I was on Long Island 2 weeks ago, and I'm still getting emails bombarding from neurotic parents about very specific things. I'm like, just relax, it's going to be okay. It's really not an in-depth application for student aid. All right, so both the parent and the student is inputting information. So the first part is just your contact information, names, addresses, phone number, social security number, date of birth. Students don't recommend you use your school email. They're probably open or closed.
I don't recommend that because when they graduate, their school email is
Yeah.
closed out.
And some schools have even closed email, don't even allow outside emails to come in. So use your private email. Some families set up a unique email just for the college application and financial aid process. But whatever works for you is fine. The second part of the FAFSA is financial information. And both the student and the parent are going to be inputting their financial information. Sometimes I get a question, well, our family's gone through a separation or divorce. Which parent is the one that puts their information on the FAFSA? And the Department of Education states that whichever parent the child lives with the most or financially supports the child the most. So I just want to be realistic with you all. It's not who claims the child on their tax return. So what I would recommend is if you have a good relationship, if the parents have a good relationship, whichever parent earns the least amount of money is the one that fills out the FAFSA for the kid. If your child spends about equal time, both parents are contributing to the upbringing of the child, that way your student gets the best financial aid package, the most financial aid. There is no team of investigators from the Department of Education out there checking this. Now they could pull your FAFSA and ask for some more documentation, but they're not going to ask for proof to make sure that your daughter or son spent 51% of the time with the one that filled out the FAFSA and 49% with the other. So whichever parent earns the least, I would recommend doing that. All right, so you have to put your most recent tax return information on the FAFSA. And there is an IRS data retrieval tool that you can click on that will import your most recent tax return. So here is an interesting thing. We're in 2022. You're filling out the FAFSA for next year's school, 23-24, but you're using 21's tax return. If you're self-employed or commission-based, or this was really prevalent 2 years ago and last year, but if your income varied a lot, and especially during COVID maybe, and let's say 2021 was a great year for you, but this year and potentially next year is not looking so great, you can, after you get through the whole application process and decide where your daughter or son wants to go, give the financial aid office updated income information, and they will readjust the financial aid package based on that. Now, the opposite, if let's say 21 was not a great year, but things are looking up now, I wouldn't change a thing because, that would decrease financial aid. All right, so you most recent tax information. And this goes for the student also. If your student worked a part-time job, filed a tax return in 21, they're going to have to import that information also. Be assured that the information is encrypted. So because both parent and student are going to be inputting information on the FAFSA, either one cannot see the other's tax return. Because both the student and the parent are inputting information, and you don't have to do it at the same time or all at once, there is a save key. So if you need to take a break, you can save the information, and when you log back in, it'll still be there. I would recommend though, if this is the first time that you filled it out, and obviously first time for high school seniors doing it, sit down and do it together just so you understand the process and can go through it together. It would be helpful because next year, your student's going to be away at school, and you're going to probably need to do it independent of each other. So income information, asset information has to be listed. So you're going to have to list assets that are in your name. So parents, you're going to have to obviously list bank account information, checking, savings, money market accounts. They're not going to ask for any retirement account information. So if you've got a 401k or a deferred comp or a Roth or regular IRA, they're not going to ask for any of that. But if you have a brokerage account that is not included in a retirement account, you would have to list that, or stocks or bonds that you own. You don't have to list the equity that you have in your primary residence, but if you have a secondary residence, or if you have investment properties, you're gonna have to list the equity that you have in those. They're not gonna add, it's not a deep dive into assets, but they're gonna ask for assets outside of a retirement. And the same goes for students. So here's a little bit of advice. If your daughter or son has a savings or checking account in their name and they're super responsible and they save their money from their part-time job, or they save their birthday money or Christmas money, or if they have just super generous grandparents that throw them $100 here or there, and they save that, and in their name, in their bank account is thousands of dollars, and I'm gonna say, it's not a firm number, but say anything north of $2,000, the Department of Education is gonna look at that as available to pay for college, and they're gonna hold back the financial aid that they're gonna offer.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
So what if the parent is the primary and they're the secondary, is that their income?
It depends on who the bank sends the interest statement to every year. So the person who gets the interest earning statement to include on their tax return is the person, the primary on that, and that's the person that the Department of Education is gonna get. Sometimes I also get questions like, if the parent is on an account that their parent is on, just, that happens a lot. As our parents age, sometimes it's nice if one of the kids is on the account, just to make sure that mom or dad isn't going crazy. Or, just to keep track of that stuff. So whoever gets the interest statement every year for the taxes is the person on the account. So what you can do if your student is responsible, has saved money, and has probably anything north of $1,500 or $2,000 in the account is move that money to a trusted relative. Because the Department of Education weighs that money heavily, and they're gonna expect that money to be spent on college. They're gonna hold back the financial aid offers. What I'm telling you to do is not illegal. When you submit the FAFSA, what you're doing is you're verifying and certifying that as of the day that you're submitting it, the information on that is accurate and correct. There is no, some people do Medicare planning and they do like a 3-year look back. There's none of that. It's just, as of now, this is the account balance. The reason why I tell you this, I just hate to see responsible families, responsible young people penalized. They could have blown money like normal teenagers and, but I just hate to see responsible kids penalized and responsible families penalized. So that's the only reason I tell you that.
I have one more question. What about like a 529 account?
Yep, I'm getting to that.
Okay, sorry.
Yep. So those you also have to list. So if your I almost said kid.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay? Are we comfortable?
Yeah.
If your kids have 529 savings plans, I have 4 kids. They're all a little bit older, but if they have a 529, either you've set it up or maybe your grandparent or somebody else, that does have to be listed. And that money is there to pay for college. That's why you set it up. And so the Department of Education is going to take that into consideration when they formulate a financial aid package. The colleges formulate the financial aid package. And they will expect that to be spent before they really kick in. So if there's enough there, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but you're going to see the 4-year estimate from the college, and they're going to kind of front load it, but not all the way, because you've got to plan all 4 years really. And if there's a funding gap at the end, you don't want to be caught with that. Yes.
We list the 529 under the student as their available
Yes.
funds.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was treated as a parent tax.
If the parent has it,
Either way, it's treated as a parent asset, not a child.
but what if you run into a circumstance where the grandparents set it up for the student?
Well, then it's outside. because it's the grandparent.
The way it's listed is the parent is the owner and the child's the
Is the
beneficiary.
beneficiary,
Right.
right, yes.
So who claims it? So that's, I have the same question.
I'm pretty sure it's a parent asset, whether the child owns it or whether the adult owns it.
Haven't
It's
done this in
better
a
as a
couple of
parent
years.
asset because it's only 12% versus 50%
Right.
for the children.
We need to talk. But it does guide you through that when you fill out the FAFSA. It's not, you're not gonna be questioning, where to put it because it's gonna guide it.
No,
No?
no, because when I filled out both for the student and for us, it's listed under the assets for both. Like you have to put in the assets for
Yes,
both forms, and 529s are on there, so there's a spot for dollars for both, on both forms.
but they're not gonna count it double.
Okay.
They can't. All right. I think we're getting, because grandparents, aunts, uncles, anybody can set up a 529 for a student, and they include the student's social security number, and it's the student's, it's for that student's education, no matter who set that up. So if the parents set it up and they include it in the parental assets, it still has to be listed as a student asset also.
They should just set it as a student then.
I don't have the answer, and I'm sorry.
Well, you can get into a very interesting situation because the parent 529 could be for multiple children. You need to include that.
Yeah, but every child that it's set up for will be, their social security number would be accounted for if a parent set up a 529. Because it goes with the child, and if that child doesn't spend it all, then you can transfer it to other students, yes. I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to that. But I do know that it goes with the student, and the student social is associated, no matter who set it up. I don't have any screenshots, but if you want, I can investigate and get that information to you. But it's not that complicated. The FAFSA will walk you through it and answer those questions for you as you walk through it.
You're saying that the college is front loaded in case there's a change of your income. I'm gonna retire in like a year and a half, so my income will.
Well, they take the amount that you've got in a 529 for that student.
Oh, no, for the back a step. I'm not talking about 529s.
Oh, you mean when you report your income?
Yeah.
Well, there's no front loading. It's just
Okay.
you're just reporting what your income is, and it's a 3-year look back, actually, by the time your student actually starts college. So if your income was really high in the year that you reported on the FAFSA and the actual year that your student's going to school, you can give updated income information to the college, and they will reformulate the financial aid and potentially give more grants, scholarships, student loans. Yep. Okay, so we have contact information, financial information, and then the most important thing to put on the FAFSA, or one of the most important, are the colleges that you want to receive this. And at this stage, I encourage families to cast a wide net, and I really encourage students to cast a wide net. How many high schoolers do we have here tonight? 1, 2, 3. Do you guys know where you're going to go? You don't know? Good. You guys know? Wow, this is awesome. I talk to so many high school seniors that say, I'm going to go here. This is where I'm going to go. And I'm like, whoa, let's step back. There might be like 4 or 5 other colleges that offer similar programs, similar degrees, similar academic standing. Why not see what all of those colleges are offering financially? Did you all know that college attendance is down? And did you know the SUNY system is down over 10%? Yeah. So here's how I think it would be fun to think about this, or not even fun, but realistic. So you all as potential students are in the driver's seat at this point. Because did you know that college is a big business? And they have fixed expenses. So they have payroll to meet, they have utility bills to meet, they have capital expenditures to meet. And so how do colleges meet their expenses? Tuition, students, paying students, right? Let's say this room is what the number of chairs in this room is the number of students that they need to pay their bills, to meet their expenses. Yet there's not as many applicants, or the applicant process isn't as much as it used to be. If a normal company, and I always like to relate it to buying a car, except in the last 3 years, that's changed dramatically. Before, if we can all think of this, when you used to want to buy a car, you'd walk onto a dealership and they'd have rows of cars and you'd be able to pick out the color and the options you want, and you could basically kind of buy it home or drive it home that day. And a lot of times, to close the deal, you know, you'd go in the office and back and forth, and the guy would come back and say, oh, we have a $3,500 rebate available. I went, oh, wow, that's awesome. And a lot of times, you would go to multiple dealers and talk to multiple and try and negotiate. That's kind of where you're at now, except it's a college degree. And I know we don't think of going to college as buying a big ticket item, but that's exactly what it is. So to cast a wide net now, to put more than a couple colleges on the FAFSA, is going to generate for you, as you go through the application process, financial aid packages coming back to you. And we're gonna talk about this throughout the whole program, but you're going to be able to use those financial aid packages to negotiate with the colleges to get the rebates, to get better deals. So it's important, if you're thinking about a couple colleges, maybe instead of 2, make it 5. You know, if you're thinking of 5, maybe you get 6 or 7. The more you put on here and the more you apply to, the more offers you're going to get and the better bargaining power you're going to have. Because all the colleges are going to be able to see all the other colleges that you put on the FAFSA. So we're like, oh wow, this person's shopping around. We need to step up to the plate and really secure the sale of our product, which is a student attending all 4 years. Okay, so let's transition and talk about the formula all the colleges use. About a week to 10 days after you submit the FAFSA, your student is going to get an email from the Department of Education, and in that email is going to be the student aid report. And the student aid report is a summary of all the information that you put on the FAFSA. I would encourage you to sit down and review this with your kids, and if you see anything, an error, you can log back in and correct that. When you get the student aid report at this stage, if you've got more than 10 schools that you want to put on the FAFSA, you can add them once you get the student aid report. You can subtract as many as you need and add the new ones.
So you start with the ability to add 10.
Start with 10.
Yeah.
Once you get the student aid report, you can then log back into the FAFSA, delete as many as you need to add. And then when you resubmit, it's going to go out to the new ones in addition to the original 10.
So it keeps the original 10.
Yep. Okay, on the student aid report is one of the numbers that the colleges use to formulate financial aid, and it's called the expected family contribution. And in normal English, that would be the amount that you're expected to pay, but that's not what it really means. It is a number that the colleges formulate, and it is a compilation, and there are actuarial tables on the Department of Education's website that show how this is. But they take 3 figures into consideration: the family's adjusted gross income, the family size, and the number of students that are going to college at the same time. So when you see that expected family contribution, don't think that that's the amount they're expecting you to write a check for or to borrow. But it is the number they're going to use. The other number they're going to use is the cost of attendance, and that really is what it means, the cost to attend school. And so they include tuition, room and board, any fees Those are publicly available. Most colleges have it on their website. But then the last two bullets, if you notice there, books, supplies, transportation, computer, spending money, they estimate those costs very generously. So what's going to happen is you're gonna go through the application process, you're going to negotiate, you're going to get the best deal, you're going to tell the college that you decide, yes, you're going to go there, you send in the deposit, boom, you're all set. The college is then going to set up an account at the financial aid office in your kid's name. And then they're going to let everybody know, grants, scholarships, student loans, we're the choice, and they're going to set up the account, and then those entities are going to be starting to send that money in. And then at registration day, first day of the fall semester next year, the college is going to pay itself out of that account. The tuition fees, room and board. And then what's left is available for your student to spend on all the other necessities for school, books and supplies. And it can be thousands and thousands of dollars. And remember, this is your student's financial aid. It's their money. You're not going to have an accounting of what's in that account. And if your student has a checking account, they can link it to that account and have access to that money through like their debit card or writing checks. And it can be thousands, and the college is not monitoring that money either. And so 30% of all student loan debt is not spent on educational items. Did you know that? People spend it on all kinds of different things, except for education. I can't tell you how many folks have come up to me, and we have a student loan repayment workshop that we make available all over the place. But even in high schools, teachers will come up to me, administrators will come up to me and say, wow, I wish somebody had told me this because I spent my student loan money on X or Y or Z. One guy said, yeah, I spent $6,000 on my student loan money and took a 2-week vacation to the Dominican Republic. Or the biggest waste of student loan money is just normal day-to-day stuff. Coffee in the morning. How much is a cup of coffee in the morning? It's not even a cup of coffee. They blend it with milk products and call it fancy names. But so what I'm saying is I would have a conversation with your child and say, how much money is left in your account? Oh, there's $4,000 there. How much money do you think you're going to need for books and any supplies you need? Obviously, you want your kids to buy laundry detergent and shampoo. You want them to get a pizza with their friends on Friday night. But maybe they don't need $4,000. Maybe they can live on $2,000. You can tell the financial aid office within the first 30 days to return the extra money onto the student loans. And I'll show you in a minute why it's the worst kind of borrowed money. And if you do that every semester, your student is going to graduate with that much less debt. That means when they start working, more of their money they get to keep as opposed to repaying debt. And a lot of times it's debt on things that you don't even remember spending it on. So the second bit of advice I always give students, the first bit is finish college. The second bit is when you're in college, live like a pauper. How many of you have been on college tours yet already? Okay, yeah. Tell me about the school cafeteria. Nice? It's kind of like the food court at a nice mall, right? There's stations. There's like a hamburger station, there's this station, that station. All right, when I went to college, you walked into the cafeteria, you grabbed a tray, you walked through the line, whatever they made, that's what you ate, right? There is a bubble of affluence on college campuses these days. How many have gone through like the dorms? Yeah. Now, probably freshman dorms are still pretty basic, but once you move up, my kids had access to like suites, right? Where you maybe shared a bathroom with one other person. You lived in like this little apartment. When I went to college, for all 4 years, I lived in a cinder block building with pine bunk beds with mattresses that thick. There was one bathroom in the middle of the floor for 50 men to use. There was no privacy. It was just, there's a level of affluence now, and guess how that's paid? Tuition. And guess how that's financed? Student loan debt. Remember, $1.8 trillion. So we've created this false bubble of affluence on college campuses, and then students have access to thousands and thousands of dollars, and they're going out to eat, and they're buying things, and they're spending money, and then the bill comes due 6 months after graduation. So, I'm done being a dad, I'm done harping on this, but you can, and you probably should have a conversation about returning unneeded money onto the student loans. If you do that in the first 30 days, it's as if you never borrowed it. All right, so let's go forward. So each college is going to take that cost of attendance, they're going to subtract out that expected family contribution number from the student aid report, and that's your eligibility for need-based aid. And need-based aid are these products here, and we're going to go in more detail with them. But these are the better ones. You want to maximize these. And then the college is going to take the cost of attendance, they're going to subtract out the financial aid that was awarded in the previous equation, and then the balance for full cost of attendance is your eligibility for non-need-based aid. And these products here are non-need-based aid. They're not as good as the other aid, and I'll show you why in a second. I will highlight that TEACH grant, the Teacher Education Access to College. If any of your kids are going for education, want to be in education, there's some really good upfront financial aid available, and then at the back end, there's some really good like student loan forgiveness programs. So just be aware of that. So you want to maximize grants and scholarships, and it would be best to minimize private student loans. All right, so let's jump right into it. Grants and scholarships are free money. Don't have to be repaid. And I'm gonna have a little asterisk there because some of them have strings attached to them. For instance, that TEACH grant that I just talked about, it has a requirement that you teach for 5 years in a high-need school district. If that's not fulfilled, it does turn into a loan and has to be repaid. Sometimes colleges will offer like academic scholarships, and they may have strings attached to them. So I have 3 daughters and a son. And my son went to college out at a college in Ohio. And he did really well in high school. And he got an academic scholarship at this school. But it had a requirement. He had to maintain a 3.5 average. So we took my son out, got him all settled in, called him every week. Hey, how's it going? Oh, it's going great. It's going great. I'm meeting all sorts of new friends. I'm having a great time. It's wonderful here. I love it. Thank you, Dad. So we got the first semester's grades. He really did have a great time. He had a wonderful time. Now, he didn't fail out. He's a smart enough kid. He didn't fail out, but he didn't reach the 3.5. Guess what happened to that scholarship? Gone away. Now there's a funding gap. Guess who filled it? Yeah. So just be aware. Just, you know, it's I thought he was aware. He's a wonderful young man. Anyway, he pulled it together after that. That was a wake-up call. The last bullet here I will just highlight. Some private colleges and universities have an application for additional financial aid that they provide, scholarships mainly. It's called the College Board Profile or CSS Profile. A lot of I'm not going to say Ivy League schools, but a lot of expensive private colleges use this. If the schools that your daughter or son are looking at use this, it's good to fill this out. It is like the FAFSA on steroids. So they are going to ask you for your retirement account balances. They're going to ask you for the equity you have in your primary residence. They're going to ask you for the value of your vehicles, you know, boats, they're gonna do a deep dive, and they're gonna go back 3 years for income. So, but it does open the door to a lot of financial aid. And a lot of times, you know, circling back to the colleges that you're gonna put on the FAFSA and apply to, a lot of folks will automatically exclude a lot of the expensive private colleges because they're like, there's no way I can afford that. How much are private schools these days? Anybody know?
About 70.
70, Syracuse University is almost 80. Yeah. And so folks will look at that and they're like, times 4, there's no way. I mean, we're not gonna take out a 30-year mortgage for this. But the good news is, for normal people, they're not paying that. There is money available. Private colleges and universities have good, healthy balances in their endowments, and they use those endowments to provide scholarships for students. And the College Board profile and the CSS profile opens those doors. So just be aware of that. Grants come from the government. So federal grants come from the U.S. Department of Education. The biggest one is the Pell Grant. That's about a $6,500 maximum award amount, about an $80,000 maximum family adjusted gross income amount. The award amount is proportional to the income. So the higher the income to that limit, the lower the award amount. There is a supplemental, yes? It's about 80,000, but it's not a hard number because it depends on the family size and how many students are going to college at the same time. There's a supplemental grant for those that need additional aid, and then we've already kind of touched on the TEACH grant. New York State has TAP, the Tuition Assistance Program. It's kind of a mirror of the federal program, but it has a lower award amount. It's $5,500 a year. Now, New York State has about 17 other grants and scholarships that we administer. It's all through New York State Higher Education, HESC. And some of you may be familiar with some of them, like the STEM scholarship. I would log on to HESC's website and just review those, make sure your daughter or son is applying for those that they qualify for. Now, when you fill out the FAFSA, it's automatically going to recognize you're a New York State resident, and it's going to automatically send your information over to HESC. So they're going to calculate for TAP at least. Yep. The Excelsior Scholarship is New York State's free tuition to any SUNY. And if you're down in New York City, CUNY, City University, this has quite a few strings attached to it. So you have to go to school full time, you have to maintain a GPA while you're in school, sufficient to complete the course. The maximum family adjusted gross income is $125, so it does help middle class more. At the back end, you do have to live and work in New York State for as many years as you receive the Excelsior Scholarship. If you don't, it does turn into a loan, but it's 0% interest for 10 years. So if your child gets a good job out of state, a good job offer, I wouldn't let this hold them back because it is 0%. Now the application for the Excelsior Scholarship is not tied to the FAFSA. It is in the spring, generally March 1st, although last year it was later. Do you send out an alert when this opens
Yes.
up? Okay.
Yeah, through Google Classroom.
Good. And it is only for tuition, so it doesn't cover room and board, and it's a last dollar scholarship. So they're going to add any Pell and TAP you get, and then to cover full tuition, they're going to kick this in. A lot of folks think, well, the Excelsior Scholarship is going to cover tuition, and I can use Pell and TAP for room and board, and that's not how it's set up. So just to be aware of that. All right, so let's talk about scholarships, and this really is where you have the most control over all of this. Everything else is just based on family adjusted gross income, family size, and number of students in college at the same time. And the scholarship world is the Wild West. It's completely decentralized, it's completely unregulated, and scholarships are everywhere. So the first place I would recommend that you start is right here. And so, do you have Google?
Yeah, do you want me to talk about it now?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So in our office, so there's three of us, Kelly Nalby, Kelly Halstead, and myself. And I have to say that Kelly Halstead over the last few years has done an absolute amazing job putting all of our scholarships on Google Classroom. So we do have, I can speak for the senior class, we do have 100% student participation, and we sent out several emails inviting the parents to join Google Classroom. So if there are parents that are not on Google Classroom, please call Kelly Halstead in the morning and she can walk you through the process. I do believe you need to have a Google account, but if you create one, you can link as a parent to the Google Classroom, and so you will get most, not all, and to be honest, I don't know, I haven't been able to pinpoint why parents get some and not others, but also you can sit with your child, and after the Christmas break, those scholarships come in fast and furiously. We give, if you've been to one of our awards night, it is hundreds of thousands of dollars that we give away. It's typical for our graduating classes typically get over $1 million in financial aid money.
Wow.
And so those are mostly, local, state, given through the colleges as well. But if you are really willing to put in the work, there's free money. Like I probably have to say that my biggest frustration is I have $1,000 scholarship and I'm begging, please. And that's lost on high school students, right? They don't, not to diminish what you guys are at, but like for a 17 or 18-year-old to understand what $3,000 a year for 4 years, like we're like, wow, that's really great as adults because we see the other side of it, but they're not on that side yet. And so that's why we really want parents to see those scholarship applications too, because obviously, I know for myself, I am paying out of pocket for my child, and I was on him like nobody's business, like here's this scholarship, and he's like, oh my gosh. And sometimes it's just simply filling out a form or write a paragraph. When I was in high school, I got a scholarship because I was left-handed. My guidance counselor called me down and he's like, here's a scholarship for $50. And that scholarship, I graduated a long time ago, that scholarship still exists. So we have scholarships for everybody. And you don't need to be at the top of your class. You don't have to have a high rank. You just don't. We've had ones, we just got one of them in the mail today. It's for a sibling. If you have a sibling with a disability, a learning disability, any disability, that student qualifies for that. So it doesn't even have anything to do with this student. It's a family setup. But I can't stress upon you enough to please have your student look at those Google Classroom. Over the last couple of years, we've had scholarship community members, organizations. They've actually threatened to pull their scholarships because they're not satisfied with a large enough pool. It's so frustrating because we're like, it's free money. They're just like, I didn't want to fill out the application. You're like, no.
So do you want to wait till they're a senior to start, right? You don't fill
Most
them out
of them
until...
are, however, some schools, I can tell you, two of my students last year as juniors got $20,000 scholarships from Bonaventure, and it's simply because I just nominated, because I put it out there on Google Classroom, nobody bid it, so I just was like, you know what? I have these two students that qualify, so I just put in for them, and they got it. They both got it. And now one is interested in going to Bonaventure, but the other one isn't. But what Scott had said is the other student is using that as a negotiation chip
Right.
because he wants to go to UB. So he's saying, well, Bonaventure is going to give me $20,000. What can you give me?
Yep.
So UB's like, oh, wait a minute, because this kid's third in his class. So those are bargaining chips. So if you really are invested, you can, really chip away at thousands of dollars.
So which ones do you know whether you can start now or start later?
Yep, so Google Classroom, we will post those
For juniors and seniors?
for juniors and
Okay.
seniors. There's not a lot for juniors, it really truly is mostly seniors. But also there is, I posted it on the senior webpage, or the Google Classroom, an article, it's the top 10 national scholarships, so the niche is on there. Big Future, and it's legitimate, it's like from Newsweek, so it's a legitimate
Right.
news source. And all of those are national scholarships, and the same thing, nobody applies for them. There's millions of dollars that go unaccounted for every year. So that's on the national level, but the local, the Lions Club, like, any organization, if your employer may also, if you work for GM, if you work for Cornerstone, those are 2 scholarships. If you work for TOPS, if students work for TOPS, they're eligible for 2 years. They're eligible to have a scholarship. It gives them $1,000 a year for 4 years. So if your student is working, ask them, if they're working for like a TOPS or a larger corporation, we give money away for, it's unbelievable. We have a counselor association, we give that away, and you give a scholarship through us. Brian and Stratton gives a scholarship, and there's just it's like overwhelming. So after the Christmas break, right now it's kind of trickling in, but after the Christmas break, we'll start putting 4, 5, 6, 7 scholarship applications up on our Google Classroom a day. We've been trying to tell the students, as I'm working with my seniors, I'm like, are you reading Google Classroom posts? And they're like, sorta. And I'm like, come on guys, this is your 4th school year that we heavily use technology now. This should be an automatic thing, like you pick up your phone and you check your text. You should have turn on your notifications. You should be getting those Google Classroom notifications. So, again, like we beg the parents, please. Go ahead.
Chris, I was just going to add, my name is Kelly Cousins. I'm the library media specialist here, and about in the springtime, the counseling department and myself will offer some boot camp, scholarship boot camps, and we'll encourage students to apply for these scholarships and any other micro grants as well, and that'll help. If you have a junior, while there aren't many scholarships that come out for juniors, it is so good for juniors to look at what is available to seniors, because they can prep their courses, their grades, what they're doing, and tailor it to that particular scholarship that they're going to apply for. We have scholarships that are granted annually, so we have a good base of knowing what's coming up, what the amount is, and your student just needs to look and find, well, what scholarship fits me, what I've been doing, and then go for it. And if it doesn't quite fit, but they need that money, go for it. But they have time to build their resume to get it. So that's just one of the recommendations I know has been working for students. Yeah.
Well, this is exciting that your school is excited about this and so organized about this. And you're not alone. I'm in high schools all fall. Every guidance office is like, we're running down all begging kids to fill out these applications. So please do it. Yes, so a couple things I would warn against is never pay anybody to find scholarships for you. It's a waste of money. You're gonna do a much better job at it. The last bullet I've got there, contests and sweepstakes, I would stay away from. A lot of times those are just scam organizations just trying to get your information. Yes, scholarships generally start the first of the year, which is good, because now you're looking at colleges, you're filling out the FAFSA, and then you can really hit the scholarship season running. So touched on local, where you work, where you worship, local organizations. Nice story, pre-COVID, I was in the Buffalo area. Afterwards, a mom came up to me and said, hey, I'm in a bowling league. The New York State Bowling Association has an awesome scholarship. My daughter applied for it and got it. It was $2,500. I was downstate, just outside of New York City. Another parent told me the same thing. So if any of you bowl or in a bowling league, they're very generous. Anything that you do in your life, any organization you're involved with, anything, ask if they have scholarships. 9 times out of 10, they'll have it. And then I just want to touch on the colleges and universities themselves. We're going to talk about this going through, but you're going to negotiate with them and they're going to offer scholarships as kind of an incentive to get you to choose them as the school. You are in the driver's seat right now because a lot of folks, maybe if they transfer schools, that opportunity is passed. you are in the strongest negotiating position right now for, to negotiate those up and to increase those levels. A couple things I would say is when you negotiate with the colleges and you come to a final agreement, negotiate that for all 4 years. What you don't want to do is have freshman year high and that it either step down or go away completely, because you want to be able to plan all 4 years your family's budget and how you're going to pay for this. So negotiate all 4 years across the board the same and get it in writing, because sometimes personnel change and deals are forgotten, so get it in writing. Another thing I would say is for the scholarships that you are getting locally, have your kids, for the scholarships that they receive, write a thank you note. That, I don't know, do you do anything to help them with that?
Yes,
Okay.
on awards night, if there's an award that's given, there's just a form that we fill out, and it has contact information on there with a little blurb about sending it there.
Good. So my wife is a high school language teacher where we live, and she's on the scholarship committee for her district. And one organization that gives a lot of money, they kind of have an unwritten rule that if a student doesn't thank them for the scholarship they get, the next year it goes away. So it's a good thing to do. It's courteous and polite and part of our civilized society, but also it can benefit you too. So in addition to making your kids on a Saturday morning fill out the scholarship applications and write the essays, make them write the thank you notes. Yeah.
If I can add to that, a lot of the local scholarships that we deal with, there's a lot of older folks, especially in the community organizations. There's a memorial scholarship, so there's a lot of times those are parents or siblings, and they're older folks, and they like the old school stuff. They like the handwritten notes.
Yes.
That's the stuff that is appreciated. And I can tell you, in the 20 years that I've been here, I have definitely had a handful of conversations with scholarship givers that they're like, the donors are like, well, we didn't hear anything from the student last year, and I feel terrible and I'm embarrassed. Of course that student's gone, but kind of like it's like, I know, and so we really do try to tell the students. So if your child does get a scholarship, please make sure they send it, because it really is appreciated by the families and by the donors. That they they're very altruistic. They want to hear back. They want to know that like it's appreciated.
Yeah. And then the last thing I would recommend is for any scholarships that you receive from any organization, ask that organization if it can be sent directly to you and not to the college. And the reason why I say that is colleges, as they see money coming in from scholarships, and you guys are not working for this, but you're putting in the effort to fill out the applications and write the essays. And as you're seeing the fruit of that, they will hold back in what they're willing to negotiate because they see all this money coming in. So you can have that money sent directly to you. Now, some organizations, we only send it to the college. That's fine, it's their scholarship, and they can set up the guidelines how they want. But for those that'll send it to you, and then what you need to do is just on first day of class registration, just go to the registrar's office and say, I don't need that $4,000 in student loans. Let me just write you a check, and you don't even have to tell them where it came from. And so that's just a little bit of advice. All right, scholarships is where it's at. There's a school I speak to every year. I was just there last week. They run a contest amongst their student body to see who can get the most. And they regularly have students that are getting $9,000, $10,000, $11,000 in just scholarships. And that's just that much less that they have to borrow. And so very exciting. All right, work study is a federal program administered by the college, and it is work. And so you do have to sign up for the job. You do have to go and do the job. They're going to be very flexible. They're never going to schedule you during class. If you've got a big project, they're going to be very flexible with you. You get at least minimum wage. You get paid every week or every 2 weeks. A lot of folks use this for their spending money, so they don't have to borrow it. A lot of times you can work in an area that is related to your degree. I'll tell you one more story about my son, okay? He's a great kid. I'll tell you about it in just a second. All right, so we get him off to college, and my wife is right on top of everything. She's like, Drew, you have to go sign up for work study. And he's like, Mom, you're always so worried. Relax, it's okay, I'll get to it. We didn't get down there. You actually, at this college, had to physically go down and sign up. A lot of times it's online now, which might have benefited him. But, so he waited too long, and they had one job left for him. Now, he was a computer science major and wanted to work in the computer lab, but those go quick. Guess what job they had for him? In the dish pit, in the cafeteria, yeah. But guess what happened the next year? Right on. It was the best experience. So, two fun stories about my son. He actually, he works for a defense contractor at the old Griffiths Air Force Base in Rome. It's now Rome Laboratories. He works in cybersecurity, loves his job. He got married, he's got some kids, which means I have some grandchildren, and life is great. Anyway, I tell these funny stories about him having such a good time in college because, you know, we're all human, but he recovered and just did well. So anyway, work study. Federal student loans, they have a lot of advantages over private student loans. Number one, there's no underwriting. Everybody gets the same interest rate. There's no cosigner needed. There's no payments while the student's in school. There's a 6-month grace period after graduation. There's flexible repayment plans after graduation. If something were to happen in the future, God forbid, you become disabled, they can discharge the loans. So they have a lot of advantages. There's two kinds of federal student loans. There are subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans. And the difference is, the subsidized loans, there's no interest charged to the student while they're in school at least half time. So the same amount you borrow fall semester freshman year, same amount you're gonna owe when payments start 6 months after graduation. The unsubsidized loans, while there's no payments due, the interest starts right away. So, remember I said there was money left in the student account available for the student to pay for all the ancillary stuff, return what you don't need? That's unsubsidized money there. It's already charging you interest sitting in the account. You know, I get a little, well, I'm just gonna be honest with you. Colleges take the subsidized loan money first and leave the unsubsidized in the account. It doesn't seem like they're watching out for students when they do that. But anyway, as long as you know that, return what you absolutely don't need, and if you do that in the first 30 days, there's no interest, and that comes off the original balance. Now, Congress sets the interest rate every July 1st. It is tied to the 10-year Treasury note. This year it's 4.99%. 3 years ago it was 2.5%. So interest rates are going up. I don't know what it's going to be next year. So what's going to happen is every year you fill out the FAFSA, every year you're going to be borrowing a certain amount, and every year's student loans are going to be a different interest rate. But what the Department of Education does is takes all of your student loans, puts them at one servicer. That one servicer sends one bill, you make one payment, and they equally distribute it across all the student loans. Now you can, once you start making payments, if you make anything over and above the minimum payment, you can direct that money to the highest interest rate loans. That's in your control. Unsubsidized loans for undergrads is the same interest rate. If you go on beyond a bachelor's degree, if you get a master's or more, you can only borrow unsubsidized loans, and the interest rate is 1.5 points higher. So it's 6.54%. And then what happens with the unsubsidized loans is, and this is why they're the worst kind of loan is, so interest starts accruing right from the time it hits the college. Even if you don't spend it, if it sits in the student account, interest is accruing. What happens is once payments start, which is 6 months after you leave school, all the unpaid interest is capitalized onto the principal. It's added to the principal balance. that raises the principal balance, and then the interest and payment are calculated off of that higher balance. So you're actually, it's a snowball effect. You're paying interest on interest. And that's why if you can return what you don't need within the first 30 days, you'll be better off. You do that every semester and graduate with a lot less. So there are maximum amounts that you can borrow in the direct loan for the student. Freshman year, it's $5,500. Sophomore year, it's $6,500. Junior and senior year, it's $6,500 or $7,500. I'm sorry, 55, 65, 75. Each year, 2,000 of that is subsidized, and the difference is unsubsidized. So it's a maximum of 27,000 for undergrad that they can borrow. If you maximize grants, get as much scholarship money as possible, maximize the federal student loans, and there's still a gap to cover cost of attendance, the college is going to offer you as parents plus loans from the Department of Education called Parent Plus Loans. The interest rate this year is 7.5%. It's generally always 2 points higher than the student's loans. These Parent Plus loans do not offer the same benefits that the direct loans the students have. So payments start right away, interest starts right away. They don't have the flexible repayment plans. They don't have the discharge plans or forgiveness plans. It's very much a signature loan. So I would recommend, if you've got good to excellent credit, shop around on the private market. You can probably borrow money cheaper than 7.5% if you need to. If you do take out parent loans, that's, nothing wrong with that. I had to when my son lost his scholarship. But anyway, there's no prepayment penalty, so you can knock those out as quick as you want. But just be aware of that. Private student loans come from banks, credit unions, other financial lenders. The colleges themselves can have student loan programs. Just be aware of the interest rate and the terms. Colleges can also offer payment plans. And a payment plan is sort of like a layaway plan. Let's say there's a $4,000 gap, and you approach the college and you say, would you take a payment plan on this? Or maybe they will offer it. And it's they'll split that up, and as long as you make monthly payments and the balance is paid in full by the end of the spring semester, good to go. My father-in-law did this for my brother-in-law when he was going to college, and it worked out great. Something I don't have on here is called an income share agreement. Has anybody heard of that? So an income share agreement, there's one 4-year university in New York using it. Clarkson University, anybody heard of that? Up in the North Country. They offer income share agreements. If you're looking at out-of-state schools, there are more colleges out of state that use it. Purdue University in Indiana is a great big state university, and they use them. The basic premise is you can come to college, we will educate you without you paying anything, and then after graduation, you agree to give us a certain percentage of your income for a certain number of years. Now they've run the numbers. It's like life insurance. They know nobody's winning, and they know what the average graduate is going to earn for each program, and each program's income share agreement, each program's agreement is going to be different. So for instance, an English major is going to have a higher percentage of their income for a longer period of time. Somebody from an engineering program, getting an engineering degree, is probably going to have a lower percentage and a shorter time frame. But I just tell you about this just so you're aware of it. So if you're looking at colleges and they have these available, it may or may not be right for you. Just run the numbers. You will know, and you can look up what the average graduate from each program within the school makes, and then decide, just run the numbers, and decide if it's right for you. We, as New York State Department of Financial Services, don't even know how to classify that product at at this point. It's a lot of arguments internally. Is this a loan? Is it not a loan? Is it just a contract? You know, what is this? Because there's no interest being charged. And that's the basic, and in New York State banking law, that is the definition of a loan. You have to charge interest. So anyway, just to be aware of that. Private student loans for undergrad students, probably not a good idea because an 18, 19, 20-year-old does not have a credit history, does not have a job, and at that stage doesn't even have a degree. So going to require a cosigner. Cosigners are just as responsible for loans as borrowers. They typically underwrite the loans, so your interest rate is going to be floating depending on your credit. So just be aware. I never say never, but just make sure it's right for you. This is kind of the culmination of what we've been talking about. New York State has in its banking law that every New York State college and university, public and private, must respond in a standardized format to each applicant who lists them on the FAFSA. It's the Financial Aid Award Letter information sheet. And so cast a wide net, go through the application process. These colleges are going to send you this standardized format Financial Aid Award Letter, and you're going to be able to sit down and compare apples to apples. And you're going to be able to use those to negotiate with the colleges. And when you negotiate, every college that you put down on the FAFSA and went through the application process, every college that you talk to and negotiate with is the first choice. You just let them know you're the first choice. Now, you may have 6 first choices, but that's how you're going to negotiate the best deals. It's going to give you a cost estimate for all 4 years. That's good, so you can plan. It's also going to give you the graduation rate, the median borrowing rate, and the loan default rate. If you're looking at the schools and you see one college way outside the norm for any of those numbers, I would ask, why is your graduation rate so much lower than the other colleges we're looking at? Well, it could be maybe they don't do enough internally to ensure student success. Maybe they have an exceptionally rigorous academic program. Let them explain it to you. If you are looking at out-of-state schools, I know other states have these in law. New Jersey does. I'm not sure about Pennsylvania, but other states have them. If they don't, the U.S. Department of Education has their own, which is very similar to ours, and basically the same information. It might be in a different format. But there's no law in stating when they must provide this. If you're looking at early action or early decision, you probably are not going to get this in time for that deadline. I have my own opinions about those two things. I think it pressures people to make a decision before they have all the information, but you do what's right for your family. If you are waiting for this, please call the college and ask them when they're going to be sending that out. And usually you can get them to get that to you as soon as possible, just so you can make a decision, informed decision, and negotiate with the schools. And then let me just leave you with this one little nice thing. New York State has a program called Get On Your Feet. It's also administered by New York State Higher Education. And not a lot of people know about this, but I want to let you all know. New York State will make your students student loan payments for the first 2 years out of college, so long as they graduate from a New York State college, public or private, and continue to live and work in New York State. So, you know, I know it's 5 years plus down the road, but just remember.
There's no income cap on there?
There is. You know, you can't, right now it's 50,000.
But at that point, it would be based on the student's income, not the parents'.
Yes, it's all based, at this point, it's all the student, yeah. Yeah, so at this point, and that number might float, but it's 50,000. And you do have to go on an income-based payment plan, which is a payment plan that's based on a percentage of your income. But as long as you meet those, fill out the application. Once the application goes through, New York State will send the money directly to the student loan servicer. And you get 2 years of the payments being made. Yeah. So, we whipped through it. How does everybody feel? Good? My head is spinning, right? You have a great guidance office. They're right on top of things. It's gonna be the recording, got the PowerPoint. You've done a great job. You've raised your kids and now they're ready to go to starting adulthood. No, she's pushing you out already. Fly, bird, fly. No, I think, you know, filling out the FAFSA could be a mental hurdle, but just start doing it. And I will say this, the Department of Education has a toll-free number. I don't have it on the slides, but if you just Google FAFSA toll-free number, it pops right up, 800 number. They do have live people there to answer questions if you do get stuck during normal business hours. Yes?
So if you've completed your FAFSA and you want to make changes, you can do that, right? It's not
Absolutely.
like locked in. When you make those changes, they'll resubmit it to the institutions.
Yes, the institutions will get the updated information. Yep.
Is the FAFSA just for the seniors right now, or June?
Yes.
Okay.
You can, you're
So we
limited
wouldn't do
to-
it till next year when she's a senior?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can only do it starting October 1st, the year prior to
Okay.
the school year.
Okay.
Year 10, yeah.
All right.
But I think it's great that juniors and parents of juniors come because I think going through something like this maybe more than once is helpful. Just because there's a lot here. All right. Well, thank you very much.